Episode 18.
Episode 18.
The first one recording in person. We're here in the downtown SF we work. Last week was fun. Last week was Tech Week.
Yeah.
And
I think it was the middle of Tech Week, I guess, when we recorded.
middle of Tech Week last week. So we got to do some cool things. We got to have drinks on Tuesdays and Thursday for me.
And Wednesday and Thursday.
Monday, you had Monday Dev Day.
Yeah. It was definitely, it was a bad streak.
Bad or good, depending on how you look at it.
It's true, yeah.
But no, this is fun. Yeah. And it's also Dreamforce this week, which, do you even know what Dreamforce is?
It's a Salesforce conference,
yeah,
right?
But who goes? And why do they go?
I don't know. Like salesman. I don't know. I can just see Benioff just up there just going like,
the Balmer sweaty armpits when he's like, developers.
And, get these homeless people out of here.
That was funny.
That was funny because he supported he kind of created this problem to begin with, proxy. So, anyways, we're not doing politics. Different.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So if this is your first time listening, this is Creative Flux. I'm Pierson.
And I'm Bilal.
And we talk about generative media and everything in the space, from audio, video, images, music, world models. And we just kind of dive into what's been happening in the space and what's exciting us.
Right.
And I think, just to kick it off, I think the biggest thing that has changed in the generative, in the space this week at least, was Veo 3.1. So for anybody that never listened to us before, we talked about Veo 3 in the past, which is Google's video model. And then 3.1 came out. And I guess it wasn't as big of a hype because it's not a new model. It's not Google 4, which we talked about, we think is in training right now.
I think so.
So probably already in training. So 3.1 came out with improved audio?
Yeah,
video?
I think the quality is slightly improved in some areas. It's one of those things, I think, and we'll see this, I think, in pretty much every domain. When you get to this level, you never make an improvement across the board. You're always going to have some areas where it kind of falls off and other areas where it improves a lot. And it's because it's not really an objective thing, right? You might like something that could be considered an artifact or problem, but people are so used to their workflow, they see that break and they're for them, it's a regression.
Right.
So it's a first world problem, I guess. But some people were disappointed in 3.1, but I think overall it was a much more improved quality. And I think I read this one tweet that I think summarized it best. It was a minor upgrade, and really the big upgrade wasn't the quality. It was the variations that were enabled by 3.1. So what we had was, we only had text to video and image to video before. Now we have first and last frame, which is similar to image to video. You give it an image and it does a 5 to 10 second video. But now if you give it last frame, it'll interpolate between those images. We've talked about this before. It just gives you way more granular control in controlling your scene.
Is it first and last frame? So it's just first and last frame, and the in between can be however long.
I think there are settings 8 seconds and 5 seconds or 10 seconds. They have preset settings, so you kind of have to pick. It would be cool if it was more dynamic, because
I think that's something we talked about. And I think this is more not on the model level. I think what we'll see is that you'll have the model labs, and they'll be building out really cool capabilities, and what goes into the model, and then what goes into the workflow and the harness around the model. Because Google Flow, for example, if you have a model that can actually take in the first and last frame, and you have the ability to, snapshot or create segments where you have a 5-second segment or a 15-second segment. And that's what the model does. You provided a first frame, provided a last frame, and it'll interpolate between those frames. But then you also have a workflow and the software on top of that, which then can take the next first frame and put it to the last frame.
A loop, basically.
Essentially, just create an infinitely long.
Well, isn't that what I think Kling had that? I think it was called Infinite something.
Infinite Canvas or something?
Yeah, but basically I think that's what they do. They just run that loop, but they're slightly more smart about it. They don't just naively take the last frame and make it the first frame. They take the context. So I think they kind of have a metadata of what the scene was previously, and that helps the story being more cohesive. So I think we're in this era. Somebody put out a tweet, which makes sense. We're in the area we're in the product market fit era where we're trying to figure out what is the best system that goes with these models. The models are now good enough to make 5, 10, up to 5, 10 minute videos, but it's still very hacky, very fragile how to put them together. I actually felt this yesterday. I was just like, I was like, I was in the mood from creating something. I had this one scene. I was like, I want to try 3.1 before the podcast. And he was just so annoying because I had the scene in my head. It's like clear in my head. But I'm like, okay, how am I going to go about it? Well, first I was like, I'm going to actually need the two characters that my scene is set in. Then I probably want to use Nano Banana or one of these image editing models because I want to go back and forth between those guys. And then I have to think about, okay, this will be the first frame, last frame for this. This will be the first and last frame for this. And then I want to generate those videos, review them. And so you think about like what does a good UI from first principles look like? You probably want to generate those images and scenes first, and then make a almost like a mental model, like you kind of have an idea of how it's going to go, and then the video fills in the gaps between those.
Right.
So that's how I think of it. But it was very hacky, though, and I think we're going to see a much more robust tooling around this for
No,
sure.
totally. I think that's like
Yeah.
the key thing. I think no, you're absolutely right because you want to break like the creative process in any domain, whether it's AI or traditional. It's broken down into composable elements.
Yes.
Like if you're a director of a movie, think about what your job is. You need to find, okay, you have a script.
Mhm.
You write this script, you have a plot, you have everything there, what's being said and what the storyline is. And
Right.
then you have to find the characters. Like, who are those characters and
Right.
what do they look like? What do they sound like?
Mhm.
What do they embody when somebody sees that character? Like, if you cast the wrong actor into being like Superman, that just breaks, even though it might be saying everything right,
Right.
it
Right.
just breaks that. And essentially, a composition of actors, what they sound like, how they look like, how they talk, the vibe that they
Right.
have.
Right.
And you
Yeah.
have that actor and then another actor. And those are like distinct elements. And then you put them into a scene. So it's very similar. I think we're going to enter into work the pattern of like software where you're breaking up this complicated workflow
Mhm.
that's very powerful, but still very piecemeal,
Yeah.
where you can build a character, you build the scripts, and you do like all these things once. Because imagine like if you wanted to iterate on that process, you would
Mm.
hate to have to like redo the character development. You created that character that you wanted to have in your so it's interesting to me. I think we're doing this at
Right.
JoeyPod. I think there's
Right.
some other people that are like doing this as well, and like certain other domains, like architecture is also another space where um it's very similar.
It is. And I think we haven't figured out like what is the new way of doing this. And it could be something like you were just saying about the 5 seconds. Maybe that was an arbitrary, like the reason we have only 5 and 10 second videos is because, the first people who just generated videos, based on the memory they had and capacity, they were like, okay, this is a good discrete output to have. And though my understanding is the models, the way they're trained, it helps if they have a fixed duration output. It just helps the training be more robust. So
Mm,
you can't be more dynamic, but that's probably will get fixed in itself. And maybe answer is rather than 5 seconds, like really good directors, they have 1 second shot. So you literally, like, I can imagine
mm,
a bunch of like, it's almost like the old style 1930s animation where they did frames. So you have compositions where 1 second shot, the actor, close up and you go like this and then close up. Okay, then done. It's almost like these little tiny pieces. And you can imagine how you can make it picture perfect, right? Like someone like a Christopher Nolan, like, I'm sure you'll have the next generation of actor who are directors who really care about like the subtle things like that. They will probably spend thousands of hours making the perfect like 1 hour 2 hour film where every shot like took like a day or something, and
totally.
they generated maybe 50 100 different videos, 3 second videos, just to get
Right.
that one shot right.
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 No,
So
that's right. I mean, I saw this yesterday. We were talking about this earlier, but like Wondercraft and like what they were doing with video, like they got together a bunch of creators
right.
and they wanted to get people to, vibe create. I like that term, even though it kind of piggybacks on
Right.
vibe code or whatever. But yeah, no, I think that like we're going to see where you bring that idea to life
Hmm.
way more quickly. Veo 3.1 doesn't really advance that much besides, I mean, first and last frames is good. Like
Yeah.
to really help, control those outputs. Like what's going to be the next step change? Is it going to be at the model layer? Is it going to be at the software layer? I think it's going to be at the software layer personally.
Mhm.
Like I think that like models today are so much further beyond what the software, like what people are building. Like
Right.
I think like the capabilities that large language models have, that image models have, that like we haven't scratched the surface because you have this really powerful, great thing that can do a lot, But then now it's up to us and our imagination to really push it to its limits. And have we done that? I don't think so. I think
Right.
we'll continue to find, better ways of prompting, better ways of creating consistency, and then building tools on top of those like
Mm.
inherent properties of the models to make it more real, like just make the process of creating any sort of output
Right.
better.
Right.
Like, you wouldn't one shot like a 30-page essay in ChatGPT. Maybe you
Right.
could, but like you'd
Right.
probably want to like, first have a plan, an outline, and
Yeah.
then you want to, expand upon each chapter. And the same thing with video, same thing with
Right.
audio. Maybe you do want a one shot
Yeah.
image, but like then you still want to be able to refine it.
Yeah. No, for sure, 100%. And I think just like other technology, the people who are going to take advantage are the people who have prior knowledge of this industry too. So I don't know, one guy maybe you follow is Dave Clark. He's put out some really awesome short films,
Mm,
got millions of views on Twitter. And what he put out this week is like, the reason I can do this because I spent thousands of hours on set. So he actually understands the film studio process, like
right.
how takes are done. And so he's like, he'll create like a World War II masterpiece. And he's like, he understands, oh, the camera needs to pan from this angle, from
Mm.
here, and maybe we get to a point where you can just click a button, but I think there's a long
That's the
tail
taste.
between.
That's the
That's
taste
the
problem.
taste. Right,
Right.
right. So yeah, I mean, I was like having this issue yesterday. I was like, I wish that somebody, like, I just want the shots and then I want an LLM almost to understand that, okay, we need to focus on the eyes, zoom in here. Then he takes the sword out here. Like, it's like, I mean, I was going between ChatGPT and then I was generating images on my directory and I was opening them and I was like trying to make a model. And I'm like, this can be so much better.
Like,
And somebody will figure this out. Speaking of tooling, one tool that Fowl made, Fowl Sandbox, different use case, but I thought it was interesting. Like, you can like take multiple model and generate basically, like, you could, if you want to generate an image, you can select Quen, Seed Dream, Nano Banana, etc., and just generate images, and then you can select the ones you like. And I feel like all these tools will probably merge together for the next Adobe Photoshop or whatever, where you can have multiple iterations, easy, see what you like, kind of maybe connect the dots between, okay, I want this frame, generate the video, save it here. This is my staging
right.
kind of space or whatever, and then
Totally.
pull in. So.
Do you
Mm.
see that, like, do you think it's just like an inherent state where we're at today, like having, like, I've always been confused why, okay, I have one prompt and now I have like, let's say you have 8 different model outputs, like eight
Mhm.
different image models. Like I have one prompt, now I get 8 different outputs. Is is that like going to be always the case? Or do you think like what's going to be different between those models? Is it just be a taste thing? It's like
Mm.
one image is going to just maybe it's always going to have like this glaze on it, or like ChatGPT, like
Right,
GPT image
right,
one
yeah,
versus like Midjourney, because there is distinct, the distinctness between them. I can't really always articulate what that is,
right,
but you can
yeah.
kind of feel them.
Oh, yeah,
Will
yeah,
that
for
always be
sure.
the case, or is it like is it an issue with my prompting ability?
I think, well, it's all of the same, right? I mean, because your prompts, people have noticed that some prompts work for one model, but it won't necessarily work for another
Right.
model. So to the higher level point, I, I think there always will be different just simply because the data these models are trained are slightly
Right.
different. And
But
it,
do you think that's gonna be always the case? Because, I
mm,
mean, like, if image models go
mm,
down, let's say okay, so the
if they
part
get commoditized, you mean like the capabilities kind of
the capa like,
get
'cause,
to the same place?
like, I guess, we can, like, debate whether that's gonna be the case because, I mean, Bill, like, is the right maybe it's a business strategy thing, like,
Mm,
does Midjourney always want to make sure that, like, independent of your prompting,
right,
like, it's always gonna have that, like, cinematic-esque feel, like, high
right,
quality,
right,
and that
yeah.
might be a good thing for them because you go to Midjourney, and you're gonna always get an output that feels, like, cinematic,
Mm,
whatever, versus maybe some other model that's a little bit more glazy or, stylistic, and maybe that is a business decision. But if models go down to like, let's say if every model just becomes really good and just adheres to your prompt pretty accurately, and they're all just like slightly different because you didn't express yourself well enough. Like you said,
right.
hey, put a banana on a rock in the middle of the ocean. Each one can interpret that slightly differently,
Mm,
but that seems like that's more on my inability to prompt well
right, yeah.
versus like the model just. But maybe that's like the right workflow. Like maybe it is like, hey, I want to take my stupid simple prompt, put it into every model that's available,
Mhm.
and just see what they all give. And I
Yeah.
just don't know if that's
No, it's an
the way.
interesting point. I have no like a good answer to that right now because I feel like there's multiple dimensions. One which we are only scratching the surface. One reason Nano Banana does well, and ChatGPT as well. They tie an LLM with the image model itself. And I feel like we haven't even seen, we are only in the beginning stages of that, because one of the reasons these image models are so fragile is because they literally take the prompt very literally. And if you add an LLM layer, oftentimes I've found out where I literally have a hacky prompt. I go to ChatGPT, I'm like, optimize my prompt, and then I take that and put it back into these image models. And I feel like that should just be baked in. And so that's probably an optimization layer in itself. Like, is it GPT 4, 5 plus their image model? Is it like, Sonnet or whatever, right? I mean, maybe that and that ability to map what you're thinking to an optimized prompt is almost as, I think, important, if not more, once the ability to just generate raw pixels basically commoditizes, where you're like, I can generate anime, I can generate photorealistic, and it's very slightly different. It's more about, can you extract what's in my head, what I'm thinking, out there?
Do you think that so does that whole enhanced prompt stuff still exist?
There are some, I know Rev did it, and so where you press a button and it just optimizes
Because
prompt.
that's just really just takes your prompt, it probably just passes it to LLMs and said, make this prompt better.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because it's always interesting because these model businesses are kind of in the magic. It's like the hand wavy, like, hey, our job is to read your mind. And if we can read the user's mind better than the next best model, we're gonna win.
Yes.
Because that's when the magic happens. It's like, hey, I gave you a kind of lazy prompt and you did what I wanted you to do without having me to go down and give you every single detail.
Right.
And that's when it's when I'm coding and I kind of give it a lazy prompt, like, hey, go fix this thing, it's not working. And it comes back and it actually understands what I was meaning based on reference and based on some context it had, and it actually fixes the thing without me actually explicitly saying. That's a magical moment.
It is. And I agree. And to your point, I feel like one reason I found personally, I suck at prompting, especially images. Even just coming up with the first concept is hard. And I often find myself going to either Discord or Pixabay for corporate. And I see people who spend hours creating amazing, beautiful imagery. And then I take that and I reverse engineer the prompt for that. And I feel like there's an opportunity where, rather than just giving you a chat box and prompting, you should just give me an embedding, take my prompt, embed space, and be like, oh, these are the 5-10 closest, based on what you're thinking. Give me some inspiration. Give me the kickstart my creative process. I think a lot of people, the hard part is actually the first step. Is I kind of know what I want. I think it'll be anime, but I'm like, is it a modern anime? Is it a Studio Ghibli style anime? The aesthetic. And sometimes I know exactly what I want, but I don't know. I'm like, it's cyberpunk, but I don't have the words to describe. And it's so frustrating, because I feel like I'm close. And I feel like there's a lot of opportunity in, again, what's in, people have these ideas, but they're very vague ideas. The problem with ideas is they're vague, they're in your head. It's kind of oh, I want to make a hero fantasy story. Okay, cool. What does that even mean? Right? And the difference between most people who have that versus people who actually produce stuff is the clarity, in my opinion. They know exactly, he's going to look this, he's going to have dark hair, he's going to be 6 feet tall, he's going to have black armor, it's going to be set in the 13th century, it's going to be the Shire, really picture exactly what you're thinking. And the people who can do that, have an alpha. And so to the extent it's possible with software, I feel like, to help people take their vague ideas and, make it real, I think there's a huge opportunity there.
Yeah, totally. I think that the biggest limitation to creativity is writer's block. The blank page problem.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, is usually what happens is I have these dots. I kind of know how the story goes. I'm very clear on certain scenes, but I have no idea how I go from here to here. And I'm like, oh, it'd be cool if I just had some options or something quickly.
So does the fall sandbox help with that process?
It helps with one image and stuff. I personally don't really use it much because maybe I haven't had the chance. Yeah, I should give it a chance. But I feel like for me, it's not about the model. It's more about the ideas and how I'm going from one scene to the other, etc. And so I really just, I've created tooling like this for myself. I think I might revisit with this new graphical thing where I feel like for video especially, I think what would be cool is you start with almost scenes. You're like, okay, a cowboy walks into a bar, shootout happens, right? That's the scene. Okay. And then he kills everyone and he leaves. Okay. What does that look like? Okay, you probably want a shot of a town first. You probably want a shot of the character's shadowy figure walking in. Maybe there's 2 doors and those saloon doors opens up. Everyone looks back. right? What's happening? Suddenly, maybe there's a confrontation. That's the wake part now. Then the gun, like, you probably have a very clear about idea of how he's going to like take out his gun, shoot out, maybe a cool walkout, right? So that's the scene. That's the wake scene. Some shots are clear. Others, I have no idea. But like, and that scene I mean, if, I don't want to call it trivial. It's not trivial. Like, but still, I don't think there's an easy tool that can just take that now and just give me immediate, first generate like maybe 5 second snapshots. And I'm like, nah, I don't like the art style. Let's change that because don't want to spend the money, right?
Right.
Once I perfect those, and maybe I go more granular, maybe I can go from 5 to 3 seconds to 2, and I fill in the gaps. And now I'm like, let's interpolate now. Let's go with the add Veo 3
Yeah.
or something.
I think this is like the key insight. I I don't know if this is going to be a law and who's going to name this law or whatever, but like I think creativity can be very clearly broken down into let's say you have like one idea. I want a space cowboy movie. Like that's like at the highest level. I want a cowboy film. Right? That's the
Yeah, space
highest
cowboy
thing.
movie.
And you have like that single point. Like this is the
Right.
point at the top of the pyramid of like I want a cowboy film. And then you're like, okay, cowboy film. And then you or an AI or collaboratively take a cowboy film and you're like, okay, give me that very basic outline.
Right.
Give me the 5
Right.
scenes of the course of the entire movie.
Or
It's
give
like,
me examples. Like, oh, space cowboy. Oh, so I'll give you Cowboy Bebop as an example because that is one of the best space cowboy
right.
like series ever created. And you're like, oh, okay, this is how a master has done it. Now it gives me inspiration.
I just think
Right.
that like the whole creation process can be very much broken down into a tree where you
Right.
have like a single point, the
Hmm.
root node, and every layer becomes branches and branches until you get down to the leaf nodes, essentially,
Right.
which are like very, very granular details. But like the creative process essentially starts off as like one big idea. And you iterate on that idea.
Hmm.
It's like what you're saying. So I have a cowboy movie, and then you can stay on that root node, and
Hmm.
then you iterate. And you're
Hmm.
like, hey, like, what type of cowboy? Like, is it cowboy bebop? Is it like whatever? And you just keep like iterating on that node
Hmm.
until that node's like, okay, this is at a good spot. Now that node's at a good spot, you kind of finalize, you go to the next layer down. And then
Hmm.
you take that layer, and that's going to be, you have 5 chapters, you have
Hmm.
5 scenes, you have like 5 films, like whatever granularity you want that to be. It's like, okay, now you have, the position, you have the rising action, you have like these
Hmm.
scenes, like what's going to happen in that movie. Okay, the first scene is going to be like a shootout. Second scene is going to be like a guy like riding a horse at a level. And then you go and you iterate on each one of those,
Right.
like loop,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
you dig down and you let AI kind of fill in the gaps because what matters is the core stuff.
Right.
It's like those core things. And that's why like you let AI as much as you want fill in the gaps
Hmm.
because maybe it doesn't matter. For example, if you're having that shootout scene and you have a cowboy that walks through saloon doors,
Hmm.
maybe you don't really care to prompt the AI to say, hey, like the saloon doors should have like wood paneling and it should be like this
Right.
dark wood.
Right. I
Like you don't
don't.
care. Like
Yeah.
the AI
Yeah.
just, if it's light wood, dark wood, I don't care. It's not core to my story. The AI just interpret what I want
Yes.
and let
What
it
you
go.
likely do care though is once you pick, it stays consistent throughout
Yeah.
the story, which is also non-trivial. Like, you don't want it to change from light to dark. It's just annoying.
Right,
It's
right,
fine,
right.
but it's annoying,
And what's going to be even
right?
more interesting is like imagine like if you had the first scene as those saloon doors that were light, and it's not like the next scene that has the saloon doors. It's like the last scene in the movie that's
Mm.
going to that back to that same saloon, and you want to make sure that the doors that when the hero cowboy
Yeah.
walks through those doors again, it's like the same color. It's not like
Yeah.
darker, right?
Right.
Even at like
Or for references, it's there's a famous um trope in storytelling. It's called Chekhov's gun. And a Chekhov's gun, basically by Anton Chekhov, like he says, if you walk into, he says, as a writer, if you ever read a story and they mention there's a gun on the wall and then they move on, you can assume the gun will be used at some point because why would the writer show you that gun, right? So it's like those like references, right? You set a scene in like the first scene, but in the last scene, like, they use it, or it's usually some sort of a lesson. You see, especially a cliche in today's Hollywood movies, somebody says flip it around or something. It's like as in a trivial thing, and then at the end it's like a life and death, and he goes flip it around, and it's like the childhood lesson comes back in a more with a higher stakes thing or something,
mm,
right? Right. So those trivial things, but it is it matters that you connect them. But I don't want to cut you off here because you're on a really good
no, no,
right
no.
now.
I mean, yeah, I just think it's just a creative process that
Yeah.
will refine and AI. I think in every sort of creative industry, whether this is images, pretty easy. You can
Yeah.
start with the high level image and like focus in on like in painting and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Video, we break it down to scenes and like I think that's just like the thing that we're gonna learn. Even on worlds. We talked about this in a previous
Hmm.
episode. where it's like, if you're building video games, and I do believe that video games in the next decade are not going to be like programmed and built the way that they are today, where like you're defining every single graphical element and you're
Mhm.
putting them into scenes. It's more of, hey, we're going to define a lot of elements and we're going to use AI to help build those, but I don't need to necessarily design every single mesh of every single object in my entire world as long as the core objects
Mm.
are like correct. I don't need to say, hey, I want all this grass to like look a certain way, or I don't want the waves. I don't have to program the water mechanics and the physics of like the waves. Just let the AI know, hey, there's waves there,
Mm.
let the physics and the
Mhm.
AI do it. But you do want some things to be consistent. Like, hey, if there's a important yacht in the
Yeah, yeah,
water,
yeah.
hey, that yacht should stay consistent, and we're gonna have to make sure that, like, that
Yep.
is a root element, a core thing that must have
Right,
consistency over
yeah.
the course of the whole game.
No, for sure, 100%. And on that note, so the second we talked about first and last frame, Veo 3.1 has one other variation, which is ingredients to video. If you've used Flow, Google's product Flow before, this will be familiar. Ingredients to video basically lets you take, let's say, two characters and you can add them, and then the video creator will use those two characters. And again, this comes to the point of consistent characters. It makes, I guess, much easier to generate video that way. You can also, using the method I was talking about with the images, you probably want something like start with the images and create the shot. So maybe it's not necessarily necessary, but there's also a reference to image model called Vidu. And I think actually it's Runway has one as well, where you can give multiple characters and create an image using those two and images. But this one just directly lets you do the video. So you can literally have a WeWork setting, take a picture of me, take a picture of Pearson, and we can like recreate this video in 5 seconds, which yeah, cool. Like
That's
this is
true.
like giving you more functionality.
You know who I'm just wondering, it like, where's Adobe gonna be in all of this at the end of the day?
Hmm. Hopefully dead and buried, but probably not. Yeah.
I mean, like, Photoshop's gonna be a very powerful tool, but this is like one of those incumbents that, you know, they definitely will integrate AI.
Mm.
Firefly has AI, their generative fill and stuff is very good, and they're still the scalpel. Like, they still have like the fine-grained, very powerful tools that you might need for consistency and like graphic arts and Premiere and all those things. But I wonder if this is gonna be like, could they be one of those companies that dies?
Mm.
And I think that if I was to make a bet on, they have like a very limited time horizon, but they're such an incumbent and behemoth that's like going to be slow to move here, and they just might get eaten away.
It could, yeah. Which speaking of which, how's your Figma doing?
Well, I haven't looked
Oh
last week, so
yeah,
we'll see.
that's
I think it's good,
good.
but yeah,
Yeah.
no, there's all these companies. I think that like, not as investment advice at all, but I do strongly believe there's going to be a lot of like different talks. Like, I know we just talked about this A16Z, like Brian Kim or something made some stupid comment about like momentum, and I was like, okay, whatever. I think that's a completely bad take on sort of startups. Like, there will be definitely companies that succeed or gather the eyeballs and ears of a large community. Also, Twitter is such a small microcosm of like the
Right,
world
right.
that it doesn't
Yeah.
actually matter. Like, what's going to be successful? It's going to be the companies that like have the foundations right and also accelerate and grow quickly. But it doesn't matter. Like, he was just said something about like, oh, you have to have like 2 million ARR in 10 days or something stupid. I was like, of course, it's hyperbole. But
Right.
like, I do think that there are these core foundations that become more important. People say distribution's the moat. I don't necessarily entirely agree with that. I think it's important. I think taste is one of the biggest moats.
Mm.
I think that like, you'll see companies, in order to scale, especially with pressure, make sacrifices that help them in the short term that cause them to struggle in the long term. And I
Mm.
think that's one thing with taste and design. And so I think that if you can see a founder or CEO of a public company, a private company, that you can just tell that they care passionately about the quality of their craft. I think we're entering into a new renaissance of craftsmanship.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
renaissance of creativity, whether that's in images and video. And it's like, when anybody can create an image, when anybody can create a video, when
Mm.
anyone can create software, the thing that differentiates companies and creators over the long term is their relentless passion and taste and commitment to like making sure the entire experience and feel of everything along the way is always good, because it's always easy to like, if this one little area, it's okay to let this one slip, this one time only, that becomes a cultural thing. And I think as you scale as a company, then those like 1%, like it's okay this time to meet a deadline or to get something out that becomes ingrained in the culture of the
Mm,
company or in a creator or whoever. And it's that slight polish where there's going to be someone else that's just going to be what we're not going to let that slip. And we're not going to let that compounding like lack of quality and focus become a part of the culture.
mm.
And then that's the differentiator. I strongly believe like that's going to be the biggest differentiator in business, creatives, software, and everything.
Yeah.
It's always going to be the details. I don't know if it was Steve Jobs, but it was just like there was one famous quote. It was like about like it's like somebody said that this doesn't matter. It's like everything fucking matters.
That high bar definitely it comes through. Taste and design are especially more important than ever before. So I
And
agree.
some and it's easier
Yeah.
it's easier said than done.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know about. I think the Figma. We'll see if that plays out.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, they do have taste and design just to an extent, more than Adobe in any case.
yeah, yeah, we'll
So,
see. Totally.
but yeah, yeah,
But and then sometimes you
that's
become
funny.
Apple, and then you become Apple, and
Yeah.
then you've been so focused on taste and design, and then you're like, what else do we have to build? And you can't really
Yeah.
build anything except for like
I
the
mean,
new the M5 Pro or whatever,
but I mean, yeah, for them, I feel like they've lost the taste in product. I feel like, they're doing, yeah, the liquid glass and stuff, but, you got to actually,
which sucks. I think it
uh,
sucks. Liquid
yeah.
glass. I don't have it yet. I'm
Oh,
never gonna have
I
it.
just installed the stuff. Oh, I guess is the whatever the highest. It's fine. I mean,
That's why I don't want to
Mhm.
get a new MacBook ever because I mean, like, if I have to have liquid glass,
Hmm.
oh, I would shoot myself.
Oh, really? Wow.
Like I see your screen. I'm like, even though like the core apps don't change, like because those are all individually designed,
Right.
like cursor or whatever. But yeah, well,
That's cool.
I mean, we covered Veo 3,
Yeah.
3.1 fast, so there's a fast version of that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's a half off, so definitely, I personally like play around more with
Right.
that than Veo 3.1. And they also do audio off, audio on
Oh,
pricing. So I think it's like 10 cents a second audio off, 15 audio on, like for the fast version. And
sweet,
you double that basically for the on the pro
gotcha.
version.
Cool, cool.
Um,
Yeah. So that was a big week. There was Claude
full
Haiku
IQ.
4.5.
Yeah, I haven't checked that
Um,
out, but
that was out like yesterday, I think. Haven't checked that out either. So
mm,
that's cool. That's cool. Apple has the M5 Pro. We'll see what new models we can run on Olama locally
yeah,
on that stuff.
that's true.
File Sandbox, ChatGPT memory and shopping. I know they just rolled out some new partnerships this week with like Walmart, so you can like buy things from Walmart in ChatGPT.
Mm,
I still think that's going to be a huge, huge like. I had a friend on Saturday came over and for Fleet Week, and he was saying that he listened to last episode and how you were talking about like the agent to agent economy
mhm.
and how like cool. And he was like, it just he said I just went down a huge rabbit hole thinking about this for like hours.
That's awesome.
He's like, yeah, Bilal was so cool talking about that, and like it just made me think. And I'm
Oh,
like, yeah, yeah,
appreciate you if you're still listening.
yeah. But yeah, so I mean, exciting week, a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, this is like we talked about Sora last Dev Day, but there's so many.
We beat Sora down to
Yeah, we
the
did.
ground. We
We
talked
did. I
about it
know.
twice.
But
Yeah,
like still, like I feel like there were so many other cool events that, I mean, we could only go to a small subset of
right.
those. A lot of cool stuff is happening. People are building. A lot of people are building the same shit, but also there's new innovative stuff. And I think once the dust settles, we look back, like every couple of months you look back, you're like, wow, somebody, did that. That's so
Totally.
cool. Yeah.
I always think that's like everyone's like, oh, are we in an AI bubble? I'm like, you know what? Maybe, but I don't think the public markets are in a bubble. And maybe you can argue whether or not Nvidia and some of these companies are like
Right.
overpriced. Like in the private markets, although maybe I don't believe that some companies should be worth and like should be able to raise the money that they do. I don't care. That's sick for them. It gets money out of limited partners and VCs and institutions into an ecosystem of builders. And
Hmm.
like that's all I care about. Like if you can just fund a lot of startups and maybe most of them will fail and VCs and LPs and everybody knows that like most of them will fail, but it gets money out of the institutions into people that are excited and passionate about building, and that spurs an ecosystem.
Yeah.
Maybe you're
I mean,
raising too much,
it's
but like it's
technology,
still
it's like reminds me of, that there's a famous Peter Thiel clip, like in 2008, I think just after, in the middle or after the financial crisis, he had this interview where he said there's absolutely no bubble in technology. and somebody clipped that line and made the Billy Joel song "We Didn't Start the Fire." Like he made a remix of all the shitty apps that were being built at the time and that had going down the drain, and basically try to make fun of him. The jokes on basically the skeptics, because he was absolutely right. That was the perfect time to buy all these technologies. Like even in the video, they're making fun of Facebook and stuff, and I'm like, if you had just bought Facebook, then you would make so much money. So they might be short-term corrections. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen next week, next month, next year, like in the stock markets or whatever. I wish, if I did, like I would be funding Jellypod. But I know over the long term, like, the technology space, we're just going to get more innovation. We're going to get more tools. We're going to get richer, quote unquote, in terms of optionality, in terms of things, we have.
So it'll be an exciting future. Well,
definitely.
Cool. That note?
On that note, I guess.
Episode 18.
Episode 18 in person. Hopefully we can do more of these now.
Yes. Sweet. Okay.
All right.
Well.
Hey, guys.